I've worked with pro footballers from all across the globe, whether their goals were speed, fitness, power, strength, it could be anything. I've worked with guys that are just as fast as Mbappe, and I've worked with guys that are stronger than Traore. And no matter what their goal was, the very first thing that we would tackle together is their training schedule. And the reason for that is because if you don't have your training schedule right, you could be doing the right exercises, the right sets, the right reps. Everything could be right, and your performance could still be suffering, and you even could be increasing your risk of injury. So again, my name is Matt Stigler. I'm a pro footballer performance coach, and today I'm going to take you through the 3 most important things when it comes to creating your own training schedule around football. And if you stick around with me to the very end, I'm going to give you a 4th and final quick bonus one that to me is the most important. And that 4th bonus one can really separate you from the competition. So let's get into number 1. So many footballers are really worried about overtraining, but if you understand this rule, it's going to be the easiest thing in the world to avoid. And that is, how long do you need to recover from training or a match before you can go work out? In general, you need at least 24 hours to recover from an intense training session or an intense match. But at the end of the video, I'm going to show you exactly how to get around this. And if the match was intense enough, you may even need 48 hours to recover. The big thing that we need to consider with this is how intense was the training and how intense was the match. Because there's some of you guys out there that you say, oh, I have a match today, I have to take off. But you know that you are not going to get minutes during that match, or you only get like 15 minutes during that match. So then some of you spend that entire season getting little to no minutes, and then maybe you do get your chance on the pitch, but you're so untrained from anything intense, so then you go out there and you're not fit and you wonder why. And the same thing goes for your training sessions. Sometimes you go into training and your coach just absolutely crushes you with conditioning and you're like, hey, okay, that was a really difficult day. I'm not really able to recover from that and do something extra. But then you have other days where you go in and your coach has you do like 30 minutes of passing patterns, a little bit of a rondo, and they send you on your way. How can you possibly train the same way in the gym on both of those days? It's just not possible. And I know sometimes your coach doesn't let you know how easy the training session is going to be that day, and sometimes you don't know how many minutes you're going to get during a match. So I'm not saying risk it and try and train really intensely on the day before and then end up that, oh, now my coach actually wants me to put in a ton of minutes. But just make sure you're doing your best based on how well you have recovered from everything that you've actually experienced on the pitch and on the training session. But what I am saying is, if after the match you only got 15 minutes and it wasn't that intense of a 15 minutes, and you have a buddy who he did 90 minutes and he absolutely crushed himself, go and train without him. Go and actually push yourself to improve your physicality, your speed, your strength, because you have that extra effort. And this actually leads me into point number 2. Point 2 is how you can actually get faster, stronger, and more fit the day of a match. So the thing that a lot of people don't understand is you can train the same day as a match. It just needs to be the right stuff. It needs to be the proper amounts, and it has to be at the right time. So first of all, let's talk about what you can do the day of a match. So the things that you can train on the day of a match is going to be max strength, it's max speed, and it's going to be mobility exercises that you have already done in the past. In addition to that, you're going to be able to do low stim cardio, zone 2 cardio, and some abs. Even if you are getting a decent amount of minutes during a match, you will still be able to do all of these things. You just need to do small volumes of them at high intensities. So what I mean by that is, if you are working on your strength, then you can easily do 2 sets of 3 or 3 sets of 2 at 87.5% to 90% of your 1 rep max on like a trap bar before a match. And some reasons why you would do this. You see pros in all types of field sports doing this all the time. And the reason why you may do this is because this can actually help you make sure that you don't lose progress during the season, and it can act as neural activation for you. So it actually can help you perform better on the pitch the day up. As far as speed work, you could easily do acceleration sprints, like 2 to 4 sets of a half kneeling start, where it's maybe like 10 to 15 yards, and 2 to 3 sprints of hitting your top speed, maybe 2 to 3 sets of like 50, 60, or even 70 yards, as long as you are using complete rest time and making sure that you are actually hitting top speed. And this becomes incredibly important, especially because speed is one of the first things that we lose in terms of physical adaptations when we don't train it. And despite the fact that you are running as fast as you can on the pitch, That's not your body's max speed because you are under fatigue. You're doing a bunch of different changes of direction. There's too many factors for you to hit your actual true physiological max speed. So when you have multiple matches during the week, it actually can hinder your speed during the season. So again, it's all about microdosing the proper amounts. And you can do mobility before, you just need to make sure it's mobility exercises that you have done before and have done like relatively recently. And the reason for that is because if I'm trying out a new mobility exercise the day of a match, let's say that it really opens up my hips and it actually does the job that I'm looking for it to do. What then happens is my body has access to this new range of motion, and then maybe I'm hitting that new range of motion at real high speeds, real high amounts of force, and my body's not ready to actually handle that because it's never really been in that position. It's like the quickest way to injure yourself that I've ever heard. So what type of stuff do you need to avoid the day of a match? Because you're probably thinking right now, oh, this trainer just wants me to train more and more. The things that you should avoid the day of a match 100% is going to be capacity gym work or conditioning. The only caveat to this is if after the match you realize that you didn't get very many minutes and you want to stay fit, and then you know you don't have like a match within the next like 1 to 2 days. And then you want to avoid high volumes of max speed and max strength work just because that will become fatiguing, and then it will actually hurt your ability to hit high amounts of force and high amounts of speeds on the pitch. So as far as when to do them, the things that you should do before a match is going to be speed and max strength work, and then the things to do after are going to be mobility. It's going to be zone 2, low stim cardio, and then you can knock out some abs there as well. The reason why you may be able to do some mobility or some zone 2 cardio is because those types of things are actually going to promote recovery throughout the body. And that brings me to point number 3. There are massive differences for training in season versus off season that every footballer gets wrong. So when you're creating your off-season training schedule, it's actually relatively easy, obviously, because you have so much freedom. The only thing I worry about with footballers when it comes to off-season training is the order, specifically in terms of order of what you do during that day. Because when you kind of get things mixed up with what you should do before your technical work and what you should do after your technical work, this is where these little details actually can really separate you from your competition. So for example, max speed, intensive plyometrics, sometimes even extensive plyometrics, and max strength work, those things all should be done at your most fresh. So those for sure should be done before your technical work whenever possible. Because all of those different physiological qualities are things that we need max output for. So the more fresh our body is, the stronger we are, the faster we are, the better. But then we have things like fitness. We have, again, sometimes extensive plyometrics, and then like capacity gym work. These are things that should be done after your technical work whenever possible. The reason we want to do fitness and capacity lifts after our technical training work is because with our technical training, we are trying to really instill this perfect technique, whether we are working on our dribbling, whether we are working on our shooting technique, whatever we're working on, we want to teach our body to move as best and as efficient as it possibly can. And when we do that under fatigue, we are just hammering home bad movement patterns for all of those different things. I understand the argument of, oh, I'm fatigued on the pitch, so I want to practice doing these things when I'm under fatigue. But if you think about it, the best way for us to maintain good technique is to maintain it as much as we possibly can during our training and as often as we possibly can. So that then, yeah, when you are on the pitch, it is going to dip more because you are fatigued, but we want to actually work on just resisting that fatigue and keeping you as high as you can in terms of your technical work versus just constantly practicing bad movement patterns that then just instill this weird biomechanics that end up being actually very inefficient for you on the pitch. Extensive plyometrics is kind of like this wishy-washy. It can be done before, it can be done after. It kind of depends what you're doing them for, because extensive plyometrics have multiple functions. Like, I like to do extensive plyometrics to build some capacity when it comes to fast movements on the pitch. So I'll often do like extensive plyometric circuits, but then again, sometimes I use extensive plyometrics to really work on rhythm, coordination, timing, any really hard, quick ground contact that actually would be more beneficial for you to do before your training. So it really just depends what your goals are. I've already talked to you about in season and how to structure it from a day-by-day basis, but let's talk about it from a standpoint of what should I focus on over the weeks and months of my season so I not only don't lose progress, but I actually improve. So in season, you really can be bucketed into 3 categories. You either have in season and your really high minutes, You're in season, you're really low minutes, or you're in season and you're somewhere in between. Only you are going to know your role in the team. And based on that role, you are going to be able to do more or you're going to be able to do less. Because your body is going to be under the stress of being in season, if your in season is really stressful and you are in season high minutes, you are going to need to really prioritize the few things that you can work on due to a lack of recoverability and due to the fact that you just don't have as much time. But if you are in season and you are little to no minutes, you're almost going to completely replicate what you had during your off-season training. Just with the caveat of you do still want to be ready in case your coach does decide to give you a chance and maybe you attempt to move up to that mid-minutes in season. So if you are in season and you get high amounts of minutes, you're playing 90 minutes a game, you're getting 80, you're even getting 70, these are the things that you need to prioritize. The first two things you need to prioritize are max strength and max speed. And the reason for this is because these are the characteristics that you just don't get when you are out on the pitch. They are also the least fatiguing. Even though they are high intensities, volume is often what actually fatigues athletes. So these things are high intensities and low volumes. So you can improve on things that you don't actually get that much of on the pitch while also staying fresh and improving your ability to stay injury-free. I would specifically focus on top speed. And if you're in season and you're getting medium minutes, then what I would also think to do is I would probably try and build some of that capacity and volume through strength work that is in weird positions. And the reason for that is because if you're in weird positions, you aren't going to be able to use as much weight, which is going to make sure that you actually aren't as fatigued and as sore as possible. And in addition, that strength work is going to translate really well onto the pitch because you're going to be used to getting into different joint positions, different joint angles, and producing force, creating stiffness, creating rotation in those positions. And then again, if you're in season, you can just go back to the off-season training model and go based off of that. Pretty much everything is in play for you. All right, guys, before I get into rule number 4, the extra bonus rule, please make sure to like and subscribe if you are getting anything from this video. The more support I get for this channel, the more I can keep pumping out videos for you guys, and the more I can help you guys become the best possible versions of yourself on the pitch. So rule number 4, and to me the most important rule, is going to be that rules are meant to be broken. You see so often on social media, people preach these things as if they are hard rules and you cannot go against them. You can't go against what they say. And the reason for that is because social media often is not a good place to try and communicate nuance. So just because someone says something, if you then try it and it doesn't feel right for you, make sure that you are adjusting things and make sure that you actually understand why you are doing them. Because to break the rules, you do really need to actually understand them, because otherwise you're just guessing or you're just trying to justify what you really want to do, and it might not be optimal for you. So if you are kind of confused on your own training schedule, just make sure to come back to this video. Make sure to drop a comment below if you have any questions. You can literally lay out your entire training schedule for me. I'll look at it and I'll try my best to respond. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to keep these videos coming. Make sure to let me know if you have any questions, what you want to see next, and I appreciate you guys. I will see you later.